Welcome back to our session 2 of today that will be focusing on the G20 agricultural market information system. Now, we have heard how complex and interdependent issues within the agricultural trade policy is, and keeping all of those challenges and interdependencies and linkages in mind, we often need to look for statistics, data, and trends, and exact levels of production and trade. And we have with us our colleague from the Agriculture and Commodities Division, Kwabena Bandok, Kwabena Bandok, I'm sorry, who will give us information about this system, which is available on our WTO website. So enjoy the session. And I believe Kwabena would like to take the questions after he delivers his presentation. He has allotted some time for the questions. And at the end, I will be making the announcements for next week. So enjoy this session and see you later. Kwabena, you have the floor.
Can you hear me? Can you see me? I think I'm having...
I can hear you. I can hear you.
You can see me. I'm having, if the technicians can help me with the camera, I'll be very grateful. I'm having a slide, but anyway, we can continue, and when they come, you know, they...
Can you come a little bit closer to the microphone? I'm hearing you in a very light way. Is there...
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes, that's better. Thank you.
Okay, good. So this morning, can you see my presentation?
Not yet. Yes, it is coming on now.
Okay. Okay, so thank you for the introduction. I am Kwabena, or you can call me Kwabi, and this morning I'm going to present to you the Agricultural Market Information System, which is what is known as AMIS, or AMIS if you want. Yeah. So yeah, next slide, just to give you a little bit of, you know, historical context to this initiative. And so if you would recall, around, you know, mid 2005 to 2008, you know, the global prices of important cereal crops rose significantly, and you know, commodities like wheat and rice prices nearly doubled, triggering a food crisis that particularly affected developing nations. And you know, there came the price volatility. You know, all the prices fell swiftly after peaking in 2008. Food prices, you know, rose again, and you know, they would likely remain high for the foreseeable future. Now, what you need to understand is, if the fundamental causes of this crisis, you know, are not addressed, the failure of the world food system to provide food security could happen again. And I'm very grateful for the you know, the presentation of Dora, which is like you know, a logical follow-up to what I'm presenting right now. So she's touched on food security. I'm not going to talk too much about that. Now, you know, another thing was the higher energy prices, and several studies, you know, so suggested that the food crisis then was primarily driven by a combination of, you know, rise in oil prices and greater demand for biofuels, and trade shocks in the food market. Now, rising oil prices obviously would lead to increased cost of cereal production, and as you know, agriculture, like you may know, is generally an energy intensive enterprise. There was, you know, higher demand for high demand for biofuels, which became more competitively priced compared with oil, you know, and that drove up the demand for biofuels derived from maize, especially in the United States. One particular concern was the effect of protectionist trade policy actions. For instance, the imposition of export bans, by certain countries amplified the price rises, and this actually had other knock-on effects. And what I mean by that is trade policy actions by exporting and importing countries can have knock-on effects in the food market, and food commodity prices are often highly correlated. For example, if an export restriction by country A on, let's say, rice exports, even if that does not directly influence the world price, can still lead to market behavior that indirectly affects, the world price, as it happened in 2008, when other rice exporters also start to impose restrictions. Commodities like wheat, rice, maize, they all share positive relationship, and price change due to the temporary production or export disruptions can affect the price of substitute products. Next. So, what became of all of that? Now we got shrinking food reserves, and in the wake of increasing demand of staple food and decrease in supply amidst price hikes, there was food shortage. And as countries started to turn to their food reserves, that would also gradually deplete. We have also increased import dependence, and owing to the exposure of the international market volatility, coupled with the export ban in countries, there was increase in import dependence, erratic supply, and this also is coming from the export controls of supply countries. Importing countries are no longer able to cater for the demand of the population, and restrictive trade measures, which though I just talked about, there's still significant barriers, and they adversely affected these cereal commodities. Climate change, unfavorable climate conditions, climate change, affects food security in all dimensions, namely the access, availability, utilization, and stability. And weather shocks was a significant driver in the near doubling of certain commodities, notably wheat. And you can talk about, successive droughts, especially in Australia around the time 2006, thereabout, put pressure on the price of wheat, and other major cereal exporters are restricted, due to poor harvest, just to protect their domestic prices. Next slide. So, what happened? So the G20, as you may know, came out, launched this initiative, which was an action plan on food price volatility in agriculture. Now, just to let you know, the G20 is made up of countries like Argentina, Australia, Brazil, Canada, China, France, Germany, India, Indonesia, Italy, Japan, Republic of Korea, Mexico, Russia, Saudi Arabia, South Africa, Turkey, the United Kingdom, the United States, and the European Union. Spain is also invited as a permanent guest. Now, this initiative, called the Agricultural Market Information System, is an interagency platform to enhance food market transparency and policy response for food security. This initiative was launched in June 2011 by the G20 Ministers of Agriculture following the global food hikes in 2007-2008. And it brings together the principal trading countries of agricultural commodities. AMIS assesses global food supplies, and the main commodities for now are wheat, maize, rice, and soybeans, and provides a platform to coordinate policy action in times of market uncertainty. AMIS is composed of G20 members plus Spain and several additional major exporting and importing countries of agricultural commodities. And what I think is important to know is that AMIS participants represent a large share of the global production, global value chain, consumption, and trade volumes of the targeted crops, typically in the range of 80 to 90%. So if you are, as you see, in the years 2015 to 2017, AMIS countries accounted for 86% of wheat production. Maize was 91%, 80%, and 91% for soybeans production. So these countries hold, a large share of the global production of the commodities which are covered, and AMIS. Next. Now I'm going to explain to you, the setup of AMIS. It's a multi-stakeholder approach, and when we talk about multi-stakeholder approach, we're looking at the various and different stakeholders who come to constitute AMIS in order to make it efficiently carry out its mandate. We have the Secretariat, and it's formed by the following. So we have FAO, GLAM, IJC, IFAD, IFPRI, WFP, OECD, World Bank Group, WTO, and UNCTAD. And I'll take my time to go through what each of these organizations contribute in terms of the work AMIS carries out. And so first on the list is the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, also known as FAO. It has a well-established expertise in global, country, and regional supply and demand analysis of major agricultural commodities, as well as food security assessment and capacity building. FAO's widely disseminated information products and extensive price databases are instrumental to the success of AMIS. FAO hosts AMIS Secretariat in Rome. And next is the Group on Earth Observations Global Agricultural Monitoring. As also known as GLAM. GLAM was launched alongside AMIS at the G20 Agriculture Ministers meeting in 2011. It's part of the G20 Action Plan on Food Price Volatility. Since then, the initiative has helped to reinforce the international community's capacity to produce and disseminate relevant, timely, and accurate forecasts of the agricultural production by using Earth observation data. For AMIS, GLAM developed the Crop Monitor, which provides regular update of growing conditions in the main producing regions of the AMIS crops, synthesized in the AMIS Market Monitor. Next is the International Food Policy Research Institute, also known as IFPRI. IFPRI's contribution to AMIS focus on bringing its modeling capacity, assessing the effect of future prices on cash prices, price transmission from international to local markets, modeling the relationships between oil and food prices, measuring price volatility across MS commodities, and defining price abnormalities and periods of excessive price volatility. We also have the International Fund for Agricultural Development, IFAD. IFAD contributes to AMI's resources, expertise, and its presence and partnerships in rural areas of developing countries. This contribution focuses on strengthening the relevance of AMI's indicators, data, and analysis to these countries. Moreover, it focuses on helping to ensure that AMI's data and analysis inform policy responses to food price shocks in these countries, particularly as concerns smallholder agriculture and rural development. We also have the International Grains Council, IGC. It's a neutral and independent source of market information and analysis. The IGC's contribution to AMIS focuses on promoting greater transparency in international markets and providing daily information on export price quotations and its grains and oilseeds index, including sub-indices on AMIS commodities. The IGC also provides monthly updates of supply and demand estimates and forecasts for AMIS countries covering total grains, coarse grains, wheat, maize, rice, and soybeans. The Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, OECD, builds on its long-established mechanism for monitoring the agricultural and trade policies of its members and key emerging economies. The OECD assists AMIS in the task of assessing the potential effects of policy changes on the global market situation for key staple food commodities. OECD supports AMIS in its capacity building function and contributes analysis on long-term issues that have important impacts on market outcomes. There's the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development, UNCTAD, which also participated in the G20 agricultural and food price volatility meetings and forum during 2001, which led to the creation of AMIS. UNCTAD also contributed to the G20 food security agenda, which was deliberated upon and examined within the G20 Development Working Group. The World Food Programme, the WFP, is also a part of this initiative. It provides staff time to the AMIS Secretariat to help inform its outputs by monitoring and analyzing local market conditions, including prices of staple food and food commodities, terms of trade, cost of food baskets, and consumer price indices from more than 60 developing countries. This work helps to estimate the transmission effects of international price shocks on local communities. And now with the WTO, what we do here is support policies that have important bearing on the state of international food markets. We contribute to AMIS expertise by sharing trade policy information that members have notified to the WTO, principally in the areas of agriculture subsidies and import taxes. But it's not only limited to that. We actually follow up with country focal points to find out more about other policy development that we may have seen in the news or elsewhere, and we report to the AMIS Secretariat. So coming back to the Secretariat, the Secretariat appoints the Secretary, whose office is governed by the staff regulations of the FAO. The Secretary performs duties that which may be required and prepares the records of the AMIS meeting. Now we've got the steering committee, which is composed of one representative from each member organization. And what the steering committee basically does is to design strategic direction and discussion, with respect to commodity coverage, and also to know in advance what to share with members. Now, the participants in AMIS are the G20. We already saw them, and as well as non-G20 countries that are approved by the participants of AMIS on the basis of their significant share in the global production and trade for those commodities covered by AMIS. The chair country, it's elected by participants from among the countries participating in AMIS to preside over meetings of the firm and the information group. The chair country is elected for 1 year. Next. So AMIS is tasked to address, global issues, and want to talk about a couple of them here. And the first on the list is lack of reliable and up-to-date information regarding the world supply and demand conditions. What we need to know is markets are vital to agriculture, and agriculture is vital to food security, and that its orderly functioning is critical for food security from national and global perspectives, and that timely and up-to-date information on the supply and demand of commodities facilitates policy choices for decision makers pursuing food security strategies. Now, there is an observation, that has been made at the national level, which is the security, to produce consistent, accurate, and timely forecasts. And I think, again, the role of timely information and transparency about food markets is really critical, and it can be overlooked. And as a matter of fact, capacity building, development and release of reference materials and methodological guidelines, training of focal points, workshops and seminars on selected topics, especially on stock measurement, best practices for data collection. All of that are really important for AMIS to address. Inadequate information on stocks. I touched on stocks, and I think it's really important because it's got a tendency to distort our prices of the commodities, and inadequate market information about development in agricultural production, prices, volumes of production, especially stocks. They all essential component of the global market information system, and yet sometimes reliable data on stocks of grains and oil seeds are often not collected, and even if they are, they're not reported publicly. There is also inappropriate and or uncoordinated national policy responses to global market development. If there is no coordination or the lack of it, what that means is that there is no scope for actions even at the individual, national, regional, and international level. So certainly coordination helps to propose policy responses, which would help avert threat. Others are also in the nature of contingency plans to remove readiness, while still others address long-term issue of resilience. So all of this means gives credibility to the initiative of AMIS. Can we go to the next slide? So I'm gonna tell you about the operational structure, which are going to start off by the main functions. And the first is, enhancing quality and availability of global supply and demand situation for the four staple crops. So the greater understanding of global market is one of the main objectives of AMIS. For this reason, identifying indicators which can signal changing market conditions on a timely basis will be among its first outputs. And AMIS always seeks to provide a gauge of the overall supply and demand of the commodities. And next is the price arbitrage, which provides a gauge of the geographical supply and demand of the commodities. The second is a timely and accurate analysis of market situation and outlook. The international organizations agree that a lack of reliable and up-to-date information on crop, demand and supply, stocks and export availability contributed to the price hikes and induced all of that trade distortion activities. And especially uncoordinated policy responses also contributed to the situation. Now, a better information and analysis of the global and local market and improved transparency could reduce the incidence and magnitude of panic-driven price surges. Action is needed to increase the capacity of nations and international organizations to undertake more frequent and systematic monitoring of the state of crops and stocks, and to develop mechanisms for improved short-run production forecasts. Now, we also exist to promote policy dialogue and coordination among participants. And what we need to know is that AMIS is not a new international organization. That is a platform through which countries, international organizations, and also the private sector can work together to strengthen synergies and collaboration in order to improve data reliability, timeliness, and frequency. AMIS will also build developing countries' capacities, which has already started. There's been a lot of capacity building in market outlook analysis and also promote policy dialogue. Now, capacity building. What AMIS does is to identify gaps in information collection in participating countries and through specific projects. AMIS builds capacities to collect market outlook information and improve quality of the data in terms of timeliness, coherence, and completeness. Now, with respect to the setup, there is a global food market information group. The information group consists of technical representatives from countries participating in AMIS. The field of competence of the information group covers production, stocks, trade, utilization, and prices, including future prices too. And what we basically seek to do during the food market information group is to provide regular, reliable, accurate, timely comparable data regarding the supply, demand, position, and its probable short-term development, as well as regarding prices of the four commodities covered by AMIS, with a view to support its early warning aspects. We also organize a timely collection of national policy development that could impact the market situation and outlook, and the collation of reports covering agricultural markets, in particular for commodities covered by AMIS. Market Information Group also promotes the improvement of statistics and information, including the enhancement of national information systems, as well as related databases. We act as a conduit to each AMIS member country to facilitate the sharing of data and market information. We also shared improvements on data collection methods and provide the Secretariat with guidance on capacity building. And the information group also worked closely with the AMIS Secretariat, exchanging relevant information on a timely basis. Now there's also the Rapid Response Firm, which is a firm composed of senior officials from countries participating in the AMIS. It is basically designed to promote early discussion among decision-level officials about abnormal international market conditions to encourage the coordination of policies and the development of common strategies. So we have periodic meetings, but there are also sometimes extraordinary meetings, like what happened recently on Saturday. There was a meeting convened particularly to discuss the situation around the Black Sea region, and coming on 23rd, this is going to be the Rapid Response Forum. And what that does is to promote early information exchange and discussion on crisis prevention and responses among policymakers. We also assist in mobilizing wide and rapid political support for appropriate policy response and actions on issues affecting agricultural production and market in terms of crisis, like what's already happening, without seeking to influence humanitarian responses. And we brief and maintain two-way dialogue with the Secretariat and the Bureau of the Committee of World Food Security on deliberations of the firm. Now, the AMIS Secretariat is formed by the following international organizations you already know, and organizations contributing financial or staff resources to AMIS have a decision-making role with respect to the overall planning and day-to-day implementation of AMIS. Contributions from the international organizations to the fulfillment of the functions of the Secretariat reflects on these organizations' comparative advantage and expertise. And as I said earlier on, the Secretariat is headquartered in Rome, and it supports all the functions in the firm and the information group of AMIS. And what it particularly does, quite a lot, but I'm going to just give you three. It assesses the quality of data provided by participating countries and produces high quality market outlook information products for frequent dissemination. It also assesses the development needs in member countries in coordination with relevant international organizations, regional organizations, and supports development of national market information systems. I earlier on talked about capacity building, and what we normally do is to bring out a manual defining best practices and methodologies for agricultural market data collection and analysis, a series of regional training sessions to enhance data collection capacity and to assist in the development of methodologies for food market outlook. Last is the identification, design, and implementation of special projects aiming at enhancing data collection, analysis, and outlook. Next. AMIS, the commodities covered are maize, wheat, rice, and soybeans. And AMIS is actually there to give a general overview of the production, the stock, the utilization, and for policymakers to be aware of this and make informed policy decisions. And so if you go on our website, we have these infographics showing the production and the stock level, and also giving a forecast of what is going to happen in the year 2021 and 2022. So for maize, production in 2021 virtually unchanged, and still forecast at a record level up to 3.7% from last season, supported by larger harvests in Argentina, China, the EU, Ukraine, and the US. Utilization in 2021-2022 looks trimmed, but still seen expanded by 2.5% from 2020 to 2021, driven primarily by greater use in Brazil, Canada, China, and the US. Now, stocks ending in 2022 edged further upwards and set to rise above opening levels by 2.7%, with most of the increase concentrated in China and the US. And as you can see, AMES countries, producing maize actually is 90.3%, which is really huge. You can also see the maize producers, and production from last year and what's going on this year. Because of time, I'm not going to talk a lot on this. We can go to the next commodity. There's wheat, and with regard to production, there was 641.9 million tons in 2020-2021, and AMES countries contribute to 86.5 to the global wheat production. It's a bit worrying as it stands now, because the Russia and Ukrainian conflict would obviously have knock-on effects on the global production and export, and when you look at the production, especially in the Russian Federation, is tooled for, the forecast has tooled for some time, and hopefully things turn around. When it comes to rice, can we go? The rice production in 2021 downgraded as lower than previously anticipated output in countries like China, Nepal, and Nigeria, which and utilization. Can we please go to rice? Yeah, so with rice, the stocks 2021, 2022 could be seen on par with yet earlier record level compared to December expectations. Has to carry out forecasts chiefly concerned importers, but upgrades to reserves held by exporters, namely India and Vietnam, offset these reductions. The last commodity is soybeans, and with soybeans, production scaled down, primarily reflecting reduced forecasts for countries like Brazil, Argentina, and Paraguay. As you can see, there is 95.2% of AMES countries, who control production, which is a huge figure. Yeah. So, without much ado, I'm gonna go to an important section, which is the crop monitor, which is spearheaded by Joklam. Can we have the next slide? So what happens is Joklam uses satellite to actually give us an overview of the production of our commodities with respect to the climatic conditions. So respect to wheat, wheat in the EU had a relatively mild winter in most parts of Europe, and the weather is favorable for winter wheat, and no significant frost damage is expected to have occurred. In the United Kingdom, conditions are favorable. Now in Ukraine, conditions have improved across the country due to ample rainfall and snow in December. Because of time, we can do a lot of discussion on these, but if you go to our website, you can find all of these there. When it comes to maize, in India, for instance, sowing of the rabi season crop is nearly complete, with the total sown area in line with the 5-year average. In Mexico, conditions are favorable as harvesting of the spring summer crop continues while the sowing of the autumn winter crop wraps up. Let's look at something concerning rice. So every month, when we bring out the AMIS newsletter, you find all the crop monitor of the various crops that we cover, giving us the various forecasts. So in India, transplanting the rabi crops is still in progress. The total sown area is expected to be in line with the 5-year average. In Indonesia, wet season rice sowing continues into the 4th month under favorable conditions. In Vietnam, winter spring rice is sowing in the south under favorable conditions. Soybeans in Brazil, most crops in the reproduction stages with respect with harvest just beginning in some places. In central, west, northeast, and southeast regions, crops are under favorable conditions. Yeah. Let's go to the next slide. So what is important with AMIS is that it is a one-stop shop. When you go on our website, you have the amalgamation of all the various international organizations that come together to form AMIS, which brings together their expertise, and we contribute. Each one contributes to the work of AMIS, and so over there you find everything from to climatic forecast to price to policy development, and it's really important for policy makers to actually have this, and to also provide the platform for everyone to have a contribution to what is happening with respect to the commodities we cover. So in the WTO, so let me just run through with the global monitoring of crop conditions. GLAM handles it perfectly. World supply and demand situation of all the commodities we cover, assessments of price volatility. Everything is under different sections on the newsletters, the monthly newsletters we circulate. Now in the WTO, the next slide please. In WTO, what we do is to focus primarily on the policy development. So we look at trade restrictions that happened within the month with respect to these crops covered, and we report on even measures, SPS and TVT measures notified us by the respective countries, report on export restrictions, as is currently happening with, Hungary and biofuels and so on. So do stop by on the website, and the latest newsletter came out on Friday. I think you can download it. So let's go to the next slide. Address. What we do basically, I touched on this earlier, is to address build capacity, and that has already been done in Bangladesh, India, Nigeria, and Philippines. And we help develop and release reference materials and methodological guidelines. There's also training with focal points, which has already been carried out in China, India, Indonesia, Kazakhstan, South Africa, Thailand, Vietnam. There are also workshops and seminars on certain topics. Next slide, please. Now, there are also outreaches we do from time to time, and there was the Global Green Geneva in November 2021, and there's an upcoming International Grains Conference this June. Several key speakers we invite from time to time, and the sessions most of the time are organized by the AMIS Secretariat. Yeah. Can you go to the next slide, please? Touched a bit on the policy dialogue, so I'm not going to dwell too much on that. Policy dialogue with respect to the UN Food Summit, so I'm not going to talk too much on that. What I want to say before I end is the 11th session of the AMIS Rapid Response Forum, which is going to be had on 23rd March 2022, and the main agenda is the revision of the global food market situation in the wake of the escalating tensions in the Black Sea region. The roundtable discussion on food price inflation, experiences, drivers, and options for effective response. And I end with the quote of the chair of AMIS, which was circulated last week, and urging all members to refrain from any actions that would negatively affect global food trade flows, including sanctions, blockages, and trade restrictions, and that to ensure that food and agricultural markets around the world have adequate access to global supplies, particularly in those low-income food import dependent countries. And this, this statement was made in the wake of the escalating tensions in the Black Sea region. The next slide is about the UN Food Summit that was touched on. I thought it was just interesting to sum up the solution clusters, 6 solution clusters that was proffered. Dora touched on this, so we don't have a lot of time, and so I'm just going to skip through. But the presentation is going to be shared, so you can a lot more information is provided on the link, and so you can have a look at that. Thank you, and let me know what you think. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Kobe, for this presentation. As you mentioned, you would be happy to take some questions. We have about 10 minutes for those questions. So I invite participants to raise your hand or write to us in the chat in case you have any comments or questions that you would like to explore with Kobe.
I would like to ask participants what they think about the coverage of the commodities covered by AMIS. Going back to the crop monitor, is there, going back to the crop monitor, when you see colors to, when you can see two colors for the same copies, are they based on the production or the cultivated area? Are there any more questions? Okay, so when you see the, basically when you see the yellow, it means, you know, we have to watch out because there isn't favorable weather conditions. The green signifies, you know, weather is favorable, and that, how do you call it? Planting, there wouldn't be any issues with the planting season. Other questions? Blue means exceptional, and when you have brown, it's no data. The ash or gray color means out of season. I don't know whether your question has been answered.
May I clarify the question?
Okay, when you see, I think I'm getting you. When you see, for instance, in Argentina, for instance, when you see soybean, for most part of the season, they had difficult climatic conditions, and the poor means it was, you know, it was actually, you know, the season was knocked out. They had, you know, difficult season for planting. Yeah, someone was talking. Can you please go on?
It was me, Pavena. Thanks for the clarification. I've seen, for example, that for the case of Argentina or Brazil, when looking at the crop monitor, for example, for soybean, there was a big part in the case of Brazil being painted in green, but at the same time, a little part maybe in yellow or orange. So I didn't understand if that means the percentage.
No,
yes,
it's just
please.
to measure how favorable the crop season has been with respect to the commodity covered, and sometimes, you know, it would be favorable for most part of the season, and you know, with the rest we would have to watch out because there are uncertainties. And the uncertainties could include, you know, bushfires, or, you know, or drought, for instance, you know, very dry season. How do you think, I'm not sure if it's the right place to ask, how to think the WTO can utilize or work with other organizations when it comes to statistics and data? This question is asked in the context of fisheries negotiations which there has been a discussion of FAO statistics and on enhancing work with other organizations. I think, like what we do in AMIS, I'm not so familiar with what goes on in fisheries, but I can say what goes on in AMIS helps, create that platform for countries to share ideas, for organizations to share ideas, and of course, also participants to also, bring up, be transparent, because what AMIS does is, and before you accede to AMIS as a participating country, you have to be transparent with, your statistics. So the platform would help drive, the discussions, share information and dialogue, in order to find a common solution to any issues happening around the commodities that we cover. Are there any other more questions? Well, I asked you these questions. I think the information, first of all, has to be brought to the information group. Are there any perspectives to increase the rate of the information? The request has to be brought during the information group, and the steering committee has to have that discussion. I think for now, these are, the pressing or the important crops that AMIS deems, right to cover in this period. I think there is still room for the discussion to be had. If as time goes on and statistics prove that, more crops could be covered. And so we'll see whether in the near future other cereal crops will be added. Any other more questions?
Kobe, in the meantime, could you just type up the address, the web address of AMIS again for everyone?
Right.
In the chat? That would be great, because I think it's a short address.
Okay. I'm trying to share, but I can. Okay. So this is the AMIS address, and you would find the latest newsletter circulated, with every detailed information on it. The one for March is just out. Just came out, and the next one would be, I think, on I think the first week in April. Yeah. So thank you very much for making time, and see you soon.
Thank you, Kobe, for the presentation. I apologize for those technical challenges that we've encountered today, this afternoon, or this second part of the morning. Thanks for the address, and I believe this can be found under the WTO site, going under the topics, agriculture, and one of the web pages that is available there is a link or a gateway into AMIS. So you can also you don't need to type this address, but you can go onto the WTO website and find us under agriculture, and one of the links will get you to the AMIS system. Thanks again, Kobe. And this presentation, in fact, concludes our module 4. We had those 2 live presentations. We will be turning them into a video recording, and hopefully later on today or before tomorrow morning, you will be receiving an email with the links to those presentations, as well as a link to the evaluation module 4. And this module, in fact, brings us to past the midpoint for the course. So we will have in our program 3 other topics. And I invite you, of course, to continue with us and connect as per program. We try to update the general program as well. So in the Google Drive, you have a live green version of our general program, and we will be updating it as well with information regarding week 5. So I appeal to those who have not yet sent us the evaluation for week 3, the previous week on trade and services, to please do so as quickly as you can, because in a few hours time, by tomorrow, you'll be receiving, in fact, evaluation for week 4, which is to evaluate what we have just done this morning. As you know, you have a list of recommended readings also for related to agriculture to today's session. So you may spend some time to review those materials. So thanks very much for being with us for those 4 weeks. And let's now look into week 5, upcoming week, next week, which will focus on intersections of public health, intellectual property, government procurement, and competition policy, especially as regards the pandemic. So somewhat multidisciplinary approach led by a number of issues related to intellectual property rights, and very timely in view of the pandemic and issues around health and competition policy, IP, and government procurement related to the pandemic. Now, how we will unfold that program is the following. You will be having links to 2 presentations. This, in fact, the week will begin with pre-recorded presentations that we ask you to review, because that will be followed by a Q&A session on Wednesday at 2 o'clock for 1 hour. So on Wednesday, 16 March, there will be a live Q&A session with the staff of the Division on Intellectual Property Rights and competition policy. So we invite you to that session live from 2 to 3 p.m. Geneva time on Wednesday. But in advance of that session, it would be useful if you reflect on the presentations, the pre-recorded presentation that will be posted in the Google Drive, that will be posted or will be given via the usual form of the links. If you could reflect on those presentations, and if you have any questions, forward them to us so we can forward them to the staff who will be involved in the Q&A, and they can perhaps utilize this 1 hour of Q&As in a very efficient, effective way to address the questions that are on your mind. They will, of course, take the questions spontaneously during the live Q&A session, but in case you have them in advance, that would be great if you can forward them to us by Tuesday at noon. So we start with the 2 pre-recorded presentations, then there will be a deadline for the questions. You will have a live Q&A session on Wednesday, and then on Friday, there will be a roundtable discussion with experts, number of external experts, in fact, 5 invited distinguished guests for this roundtable discussion, which will be moderated by Mr. Anthony Tubman, Director of the Division on Intellectual Property, Government Procurement and Competition Policy. And we previewed 1.5 hours for this on Friday, starting at 13:30 to 15 hours. So 1:30 to 3 o'clock p.m. on Friday, 18th of March. And for this also, it would be useful if you had any questions that you wanted to address if you could send those questions to us in advance by hopefully by Thursday at noon, so that we can pass them on to the staff or to the moderator, and the moderator would be also mindful of how to perhaps divide the time to make sure that these questions are addressed. You will be also able to ask the questions directly at the roundtable, but should something arise while you are watching the presentations, the pre-recorded presentations, and throughout the week, we would ask you please to send us the questions in advance. So for the live Q&A session with IPD staff on Wednesday, the deadline is for questions on Tuesday at noon. And for the roundtable with the external speakers, which will be taking place on Friday at 1:30 p.m., the deadline for questions would be on Thursday at noon. So that is a program for week 5. It will be a busy week, and we invite you wholeheartedly to review the materials. There is also a list of recommended readings for that module already in the Google Drive, as well as a detailed agenda for that module. So you can already preview what will be happening, review the materials, and very soon we'll be sending to you the email with the links and sort of repeating the outline of that module, and encouraging you to review the pre-recorded sessions and get ready for that module. So are there any questions regarding the conduct of the course or the week 5 module? I hope this was clear, and you can of course review with details in the detailed agenda in the Google Drive, and we'll be following up probably before the middle of this week with an email message inviting you to get ready for week 5 events. I don't see anyone asking for the floor, so I take it that everything is clear. And I thank you again very much for being with us today, this morning, here in Geneva. I wish you all the best for the week. Good day, good afternoon, good night, and we look forward to seeing you next week on these dates for live session, and of course invite you to preview the pre-recorded sessions for you. Thank you very much again. Have a good week. Bye-bye.